Support for Flying Valiant Builds is brought to you by 1st and 64th Customs, Video Geek Productions, the Brian Smith YouTube channel, Matchbox Mark, Jonathan Vonesh, and Donald Rachic. Please like, share, and subscribe. There's only one rule when it comes to eating it on the streets, and that's to watch out for the parasites. Hey there folks, Chuck here. And if you've followed my channel for any amount of time at all, you've probably heard me at some point mention my good buddy and fellow YouTuber, Christian Zadek. He had a channel for several years called Street Food, where he went around his second home in Xi'an province, China, and sampled the street food and offered reviews. It was a really fun channel, and he did, I think, 10 or 11 seasons of it, and he went all over the place, from Thailand to Japan to right here in the good old US of A. In fact, even in my hometown of Gainesville, Florida. He is back in the US, and he has changed the format of his channel a little bit to be more about his life and his family and storytelling, and it is a ton of fun, and I highly recommend you check it out up in the right-hand corner right now. A very important part of Christian's life is his two daughters, Journey and River, and I am fortunate to have them among my viewers. They enjoy these videos, and they had a chance to come by and visit not too long ago and tour the studio, as it were, and I heard from Christian that they wanted to hire me to make them a food truck, and I thought that was a great idea, and I suggested that instead of hiring me with money, we do an art trade. As both girls are incredibly creative, they seemed to like that idea. And not too long after we had this discussion, I received an envelope in the mail featuring some of Journey's drawings turned into stickers of her creation, this character Lavcat. And not only was there some of her existing drawings, but she created some special ones, including Lavcat in the Valiant, and Lavcat saying my token sign-off phrase. And I thought that was more than enough to earn a food truck in return. So I found the best one in my collection, which happens to be this Deadpool Chimichanga Truck from Hot Wheels. And while this truck is objectively awesome, I wanted to give her something a little more tailored to her taste. So with that in mind, let's get to the breakdown. I knew as soon as the stickers arrived that this build was going to have some Lavcat touches. Incorporating Lavcat into the decal mix is a must. I asked about her favorite foods, and aside from traditional Chinese cuisine, her papa told me that she happened to like tacos, and, as it happens, tacos plus cat is a palindrome. More on that in a bit. I also happened to learn that her favorite color is purple, so that's definitely going to be part of the truck, and I thought I would find a way to make her a part of the action. I've heard a few comments from them wondering why my vehicles always ended up so dirty, and since I've promised myself to stick almost entirely to weathered builds from here on out, I did want to do it weathered, but not filthy. And of course, by now I'm sure you're asking, but what about River? Don't worry, I've got a plan for that. Ready? Punch that subscribe button. Let's boogie. Because this was already a premium casting, and I like the wheels that came with it, there really wasn't going to be too much modifying of the body. So I went straight to the windshield, with its dip in pledge floor gloss, and set that aside. And while Deadpool is cool, he doesn't exactly look like a young woman. So I broke out my jeweler's saw and cut him out. Don't worry, the figure grew back just fine. I filed that area smooth, then busted out some sheet styrene and made a new countertop. And that was really it for the interior. Then it was off to paint, regular gray AK Interactive primer, covered with a custom mix to get a slightly darker than lavender Lavcat purple. I wanted to have the rest of the colors contrast with the purple, so I went with a yellowish tan for the interior. The base on these trucks is usually just metal, so I used DSP blackened steel paint to paint in the floor, and DSP tarnished steel to do the lids on the different food containers and the countertop. The seat got a coat of light tan, and the wheels and the grille got a blackened steel look. Oh, and check it out. Here's my new 3D printer. It's an Anycubic Photon Mono X, and it really is phenomenal. It is 3 times faster than my old 3D printer. It's over twice as big. There's very little not to love with this thing. I'm still working out the kinks though. But I can tell once this thing is fully up and running, it's going to be a thing of beauty. So what was I printing, you ask? We got to make Journey part of the action. And I figured the best way to do that was to find a figure on Thingiverse, and I found this young chef and cast her to play Journey in the role of food truck owner. Who's the other figure, you ask? To that I say, look over there! I used AK Interactive's intense colors for the clothes on the figure. Fresh cut timber is the skin tone, heavy khaki is the hair color, and Wraith's bone white for the apron. Once the figure was done, I gave her buttons the Stuart Simple mirror paint finish, a couple of dark spots for eyes, and a Citadel sepia shade to mute the colors just a little bit and add some shadow. Then it was back to the truck, where I took the AK Interactive Intense Yellow again and used it on the bumpers and the outside countertops, and then some Wraith's Bone White for the overhead signs and the air conditioner unit. Stuart Simple mirror paint for the PA horn and the reflectors on top, and Tamiya panel liner for all the nooks and crannies. In hindsight, I probably should have used dark gray instead of black for this one, but once I did the cleanup with a cotton swab and some paint thinner, it turned out just fine. There was Stuart Simple mirror paint on the back taillights, which I covered with some acrylic stoplight red, and some turn signal amber for the reflectors on top. I also used the panel liner on the grille of the truck, metallic medium serving as the base for the headlights. Like I said, I didn't want the truck to be filthy, but I did want it to look like a truck that was in service, so I used the AK Interactive Rain Marks pencil and a little water to create some dust buildup on the top of the truck where it wouldn't have been cleaned as regularly as the sides of the truck. And once that was on there, I stippled with a stiff brush. I also did a gray wash over the sides of the truck to mute the colors just a little bit. Then it was time for the decals. I, of course, had to use the Stay Fresh Cheese Bags Lav Cat, but to work as a taco cat, remember that palindrome? It would need a little work. So off to Photoshop we went. Hopefully she doesn't mind too much that I modified her work. I also love this pizza cat, but of course, we're doing tacos. So needed to modify the catchphrase just a little bit. There was also a cat that I'm pretty sure was supposed to be her father, so I had to put that in as well. And then it was decal time. I also did a little detailing on the air conditioner to make it look like a Coleman outside air conditioner, added a grill and some Coleman logos, and I wanted to try headlight decals, so I did headlight decals for the front and taillight decals for the back, and they turned out okay. She of course also got her personalized license plate with her name on it. Again, hang tight, River, we're getting to you. I then carefully sealed everything up with some satin varnish, and then it was time for the chassis. Kept it pretty basic, oil-stained earth wash with a few light rust detailings along the frame rails, and a little engine detailing and some engine oil stain. And of course, a good taco truck is going to be squeaky clean. I didn't want it to look too unrealistic, so I gave a light Nuln oil wash for the interior of the truck, and then wiped most of it off with a cotton swab, just to add a little illusion of shadow around all the nooks and crannies. And once that dried, I did a sepia wash as well, just to add some modulation to the tan. With that, it was time to put Journey in her place as the leader of the Taco Cat taco truck. I decided on aged concrete as a good color for the utilitarian steering wheel that would be in a taco truck, with a little Tamiya panel liner to fill in the shadow. With the headlight decals applied, I went over them with some AK Interactive wet effects to create a glossy glass look. This stuff is like a syrup. It's really nice to work with because you just put one drop on it and it just flows into whatever it is that you need to flow. It's self-leveling, and the end result is it catches the light and looks like water, or in this case glass. Very light touches of rust on the bottom of the bumper, and while I had some dark colors out, I painted the front of the horn black to create the illusion of an open horn. And it was time to snap everything together, but we're not quite done yet. There are a few final adjustments to be made. A couple of marker lights that needed to be touched up, and in case you were shouting at the screen earlier when I did the mirror paint before doing the varnish, you're right, I shouldn't have done that first. So of course I went over most of my stuff again with the mirror paint to recreate that mirror look, because once you put satin varnish, or really any varnish, over mirror paint, it clouds it up. And once that was done, it was time for some very light rust applications on some of the heavily worn areas, like around the open windows, the bumpers, areas where lots of hands would have touched or lots of feet would have trod. I also used some Tamiya weathering powder gunmetal on the areas where paint would have worn through, but they would still have so much contact that there wouldn't be time for things to rust. Gunmetal is a much better option than silver in this instance. It has that dark, almost oily finish that's a lot more realistic than silver in most cases. I took a cotton swab and used MIG Subtle Dirt effect on the tires and some City Dirt pigment around the roof and the bottom of the truck. Oh yeah, one last thing. Gotta make sure that there's a little grime on the windows. This is MIG Rain Marks, which is an acrylic paint. I just dabbed some on with a cotton swab and then immediately wiped most of it off, so there'd be a little grime in the corners. Then it's time for the decal, the number, and to get this truck off to its new home. But before we do that, let's take one last look at where we came from. This delightful chimichanga truck from our friend Deadpool was only too happy to volunteer it for the cause. This is a great classic Hot Wheels casting. It's been around for decades. I'm sure someone in the comments can tell me when it started. I'm sure it was back in probably the mid-70s. And let's see where we ended up. The palindromic taco cat, reminding folks to eat it on the street, watch out for the parasites. This was a wonderful project to work on. I probably sweat about it more than any of my other projects because I really wanted to do a good job. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, really all that matters is that Journey likes it, but it's always nice to get a second opinion. While you're leaving your comment, I want to thank my patrons who are directly responsible for keeping this channel going. You saw the Bandit level, which are my presenting sponsors at the beginning of the video, but I'd also like to thank my Rockford level sponsors, Mid-Island Customs Diecast, Maple Leaf Customs, Double V's Customs, Mr. Zanzibar 91, Gary Tasker, and Aunt Tracy. And let's not forget the Douglas level patrons, the Good Bad Better Podcast, Jordan Kleinen, Curtis Crafts, Jim Silva, and Kamikaze Customs. If you want to learn more about how to support the show and all the benefits that you get as a patron, you can visit flyingvaliant.com. Like I said, this was an absolute blast, but we're not finished yet. There is something else in the mix, and I think you're going to want to make sure you punch that subscribe button, ring that bell, and stick around. Because River, I haven't forgotten you, and I think you're going to like what I have in store. One last thing before I go. For this video's recommendation, I am shouting out a relatively new channel, Diecast Creates. He's only got 39 subscribers right now, so I'm counting on you to change that quickly. Let's get him some more subscribers. He is relatively new to customizing and to posting videos, but it's really awesome that he's getting out there and showing us the earliest parts of his work and taking us along on his process. And his first video is a really cool custom of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles party van. I highly recommend you check it out. It is super cool, and he's just done his first Gaslands build, and it turned out amazing as well. So yeah, check him out. Be sure to tell him I sent you. As always, I want to thank you for coming along with me for the ride. So until next time, stay fresh, cheese bags.